Hey everybody, it's Keen with Alaska Bush School, and I just set up a tarp shelter. See my other video on that, and we're gonna go ahead and start a fire below the tarp shelter. And it has been very, very wet here. It's been raining for about a week off and on here in Nome, and everything is wet. So let's talk about how to start a fire when it is wet out, maybe even raining, and all the supplies that you're gonna find in the woods are wet. We don't have any big conifer trees here, no spruce trees. You can take a look around, but all that we have here are willows. So can be a really challenging environment to start a fire. Let's go see what we can find. Okay, so it's really no good searching for tinder out here because there's not going to be any that's dry. As I've said, it's been raining for about a week. There's still water on a lot of the leaves here, and we're gonna have to make our own tinder. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find a dry willow, and I'm gonna cut that willow, and we're gonna go ahead and make tinder from shavings from that willow. All right, I'm here in the willow thicket, and what I'm looking for are dry willow branches. And when I mean dry, I mean willow branches that break off with a nice clean crack. That one, not dry. Most of the time, the willow branches that are dry have to be without any bark on them. For an example, this would be one I could maybe use for kindling later, but you can tell it's still kind of wet on the middle. So I'm looking for something a little bit more like that. Take a look at how that looks. It's dry in the middle, and anything with bark on it, even if it's dead, like for example, this right here, super flexible, that is not going to be dry. So can't have bark, and it has to kind of snap off when you break it. Here's an example of a bigger piece of willow that I might use for firewood later, but it's too old. It's, maybe been dead for a few years, kind of rotten. In general, the newer the willow branch, as long as it's dead and dry, the better. It'll have a higher quality of wood. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wander around here, and I'm gonna try to find some really good dead branches that look like they're fairly fresh and that are nice and dry. Okay, found what I'm looking for. Take a look here. See that nice whitish color to that branch right there? That is a nice, pretty recently killed off willow. It should be perfect for what we're gonna use it for. We're gonna use this willow branch to make our tinder. So we've got tinder covered. What I tell my students when I'm teaching them fire building here is that I want to see a grapefruit-sized bundle of tinder, real good dry stuff. So in that case, it's gonna be wood shavings. And then I like to see an armload of pencil-sized or thinner kindling, and the kindling has to be dry. Usually what you're going to do is you're just going to search for willow branches like this one, and you're going to break off these dry ends. Okay, they get maybe right around here is about pencil sized, so you're looking for a real good armload of pencil sized or thinner branches. All right, I've started collecting here, and I just wanted to show you an example of a willow that's going to provide us with a lot of good kindling right here. You can see that kind of barkless branch right here, real nice and thin, and when it cracks, you hear that nice little sharp crack. That's what we're looking for. Okay, we're here below the tarp shelter, and I wanted to offer a couple of pro tips for starting a fire in wet weather. Okay, pro tip number one, this is super important. Make sure you've got plenty of kindling, plenty of tinder, which we'll make later, and I really did mean an armload, and I really do mean a grapefruit-sized ball of tinder. That's super important. I can't tell you how many times I've been out with students. They've lit a fire, and it's a little teeny fire, and they're like, fire! And they're so excited. And then they look at the fire, and then it starts to go out, and then they're like, we need more wood. Okay, so don't be like them. Make sure you've got plenty of kindling, plenty of tinder. Okay, pro tip number two. Take your time when you're gathering these supplies, because when I mean pencil-sized or thinner, I really, really mean pencil-sized or thinner. And look at this one. All the bark is gone. This is like the ideal right here. This will dry out from flames in no time. If it hasn't been raining, like it hasn't been raining for a few hours here today, this has already dried back out. It was on the tree, had that chance to dry out. Likewise, it'll get wet in the rain, but again, it'll dry right back out, or it'll dry right out when flame hits it. So not all of this stuff doesn't have bark. Like some of these branches, do have bark. I'm going to go ahead and pick out the ones just without the bark when I go ahead and light this fire. Okay, pro tip number 3, and this one is super important. Start your fire on top of wood. Don't ever start your fire on the ground. Unless you're sure it'll go. If you're out in the desert or somewhere it's been super dry, you know, go ahead, start it right on the ground. It's no big deal. But out here, the ground is wet and the ground is cold, right? And even these pieces of wood that have been just laying here on the ground are going to be much drier than the earth itself, and these rocks and the soil and things like that. So I always do this now. Anytime the weather is even a little bit on the damp side, I do it inside in my wood stove, and basically it's just kind of become the norm for me. And you will be amazed how much better your fires start, how much quicker they go. Remember, with a fire needs 3 things, right? The first thing a fire needs is going to be the heat source. We're going to provide that through, you know, either friction or artificial means like a lighter or a sparker or something like that. So you've got your heat source. The second thing your fire is going to need is going to be some sort of fuel to burn. And then, of course, the third thing the fire is going to need is going to be oxygen. When you start a fire on the earth, you do 2 things. Number 1, you go ahead and you deprive it of that little bit of oxygen that's going to be flowing under the wood, which is important. But the big thing you do is you take that heat away, because as soon as that fire is on that earth, it's going to start to give that heat away into the ground. And the wood actually reflects the heat back a lot better, as well as you know, provides fuel for it to burn while it's sitting there, and gives it that extra oxygen as it goes in through the branches. So really important. Definitely start your fire on top of sticks like what I'm doing right now. Okay, the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to make some tinder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use shavings. So I've got my barkless willow, the one that kind of snapped off. You know, and the newer the better. Like I said, if it's dead last year, that's going to be better than dead 3-4 years ago, and where it's starting to rot. So you want high quality wood. This one's okay. It's still a little bit bendy, which I like to see. I'm going to go ahead and take this. I'm going to shave it down. Now, the way I like to do this, I take like my raincoat, and you know, I'm under this tarp, so it's nice and dry right now. So I take like a tote, something like this, and find out which pocket my knife is in. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and use the Swiss Army knife. And there's a couple different ways to do this. You're going to want to get all the surface layer off before you start making fine shavings. I'll often go ahead and do this against my chest this way. It's just easier for me to do that. But just realize anytime you cut toward yourself, you know, you have to be super careful. It's also easy to do this just like this. So I'm just going to take the knife and I'm going to make some shavings. And get all that brown stuff off first. Those ones can be a little bigger. They don't need to be super small. And already I can feel I'm getting into the dry wood. Okay, so once I get here, I want to start making the shavings real fine. Okay, so let's see how much we were able to gather. Take the wet pieces of bark out. This is why I like to do this in the rain jacket. So I'm getting close. I'm at orange size, maybe a little bit more. So sometimes you can make a feather stick like this if the conditions are right and your willow is good. Oftentimes the willows won't do this. Spruce will, other woods will. And then you can take like your sparker and you can just light it, or if you have a lighter, you can just light, you know, these little curls, and that works also really well. So we're gonna keep this little guy. We're gonna see if we can go ahead and find a spark to catch just right here. It might be a little too big. We'll have to see. Okay, so now that my shavings are on fire, set this carefully away. I'm going to grab my little bundle of very fine kindling, and I'm almost going to use it to shield the wind at first. I'm going to hold it over the fire. I don't want to drop too much on there. So I'm going to let it start to go. And once most of that wood shavings have started to catch, I kind of gently just ease that down. Usually when you kind of let go, the willows sort of fall apart a little bit, and then that provides just about the right amount of oxygen for the fire to go ahead and start. Looks like the wind has sort of switched for a minute here. And now pretty much I can walk away at this point. I mean, it's gonna go just fine, and I'll have a good hot fire here in just just a minute. I have made fire! Sorry, I think that's like from Castaway or something. I got a little carried away. All right, and that is how to build a fire in wet weather. If you can go ahead and build a fire this way, you can basically build a fire anywhere. Anywhere there's sticks, even if it's raining, even if it's wet. And also, if you haven't pressed subscribe yet, why not? And another thing, for every hour you spend on the computer watching videos like this, why don't you go ahead and spend that same hour outside, practice this stuff for real. You'll find it a lot more enjoyable, and you'll learn a lot more too. So this is Keen from Alaska Bush School. Hope you enjoyed it.